the segment. So the next section we wanted to talk about, remember the four sections I've talked about. First was the discover, second was build, third one was the security and segmentation. So let's basically talk about how we segment this traffic, how we create these kind of segmentations, how do we create application aware policies, not just network like five tuples type of policy, source IP, destination IP, but how actually you can see the upper layer protocols, what is required, how can you block an HTTP get to an application running somewhere in Azure, or how do you block a specific TCP port number, for example. So those are a few things that you're going to see as part of the next demo, where we want to segment and secure the traffic across the regions.
One of my favorite things, can you show me all my policies that are sitting there dead and unused? Like that's probably one of the biggest things is people have hundreds of policies they attach to something, detach the policy, and then it's just sitting there. Even better when it's called, default policy, XXX.
So yeah, and great point. Actually, in the observability section, when we show you how we can show how the traffic is flowing from the source to destination across hops, we actually show you which policy is taken into effect for this traffic to actually flow. So you can absolutely see for all of my sessions what policy is being enforced as well.
And because you can actually show also the orphaned policies, which are basically just sitting there unattached.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll just show it to you. But before I go into policies, I quickly want to show you the namespaces. Essentially, creating a namespace is a fairly straightforward concept. What we say is, hey, give me some name for this namespace. Give me some name. Let's say it's test. And either you can create this namespace which is global in nature, or during the creation itself, you can go ahead and assign your networks to it if at all your networks are already attached. Let's say that when you're starting, you put everything in the same namespace /network segment, let's say default, right? But now you're thinking about how do I really segment my traffic? You can come here and then choose any of the VPCs or networks out there and just try to put them in a different network, and it's gonna just work. I'm just gonna click save, and it's what it is doing. It's creating this segment that will be spread across throughout the Prosimo fabric, right? So this is just the namespace where you put networks in namespace, they cannot talk to each other. Now comes the interesting part, which is policy. We're saying that, hey, unless and until you define that this guy can talk to this guy, you actually the traffic will not work.
Yeah, the count would be 0 there if it was not attached.
Right. Perfect. Thanks.
The important thing is, I know that all of us have seen multiple versions of policy and how vendors actually do it. I'm not going to bore you through that part, but something that is unique to Prosimo that we are doing is you can go the traditional way of defining a policy. You can say, I just want to use my time-trusted network ACL, my 5-tuple source IP, destination IP, port protocol, and I'm good. And as long as this policy is attached to this network, the traffic should work. What we think, and this is absolutely, most of our customers use this as well, but what we bring to the table is a very interesting concept, right? Which is a targeted policy, and for the lack of better word, an identity-based policy, right? So anything that you attach to this Prosimo fabric gets an identity. And you actually use that identity when you are defining a policy. So here you're saying, hey, my source network is this particular guy. I don't care what the CIDR or what underlying IP for this particular VPC is. This is the identity that you have onboarded onto Prosimo. And when the traffic comes to Prosimo, we will actually evaluate the traffic against this identity. Let's say tomorrow you delete this VPC and assign that CIDR to another VPC in different region, and you onboard that. This policy will not be evaluated because we don't have that identity, right? And that makes it very secure that it's not just network ACL, but it's sort of how we are making it different. You can also, as Faraz was saying, you can bring in different HTTP parameters. Hey, I want to use this get post. Very specific requests should only be allowed to go to the target. But now we want to attach this policy to a target. And here I'm saying, hey, there is this network, another network identity that I've onboarded onto Prosimo. As long as this guy is the source and this guy is the target, or this application is the target, allow the traffic, right? But so this of course lets you send all type of traffic. But to your question, I know there was a question from the delegate on Zoom. If you want to be very specific on what ports and protocols you want to use, you can go through the network ACL route, where you define the port and protocols that should be allowed to actually talk to the destination.
And this includes the cloud native tags. So if you're assigning tags as well, like in order to create that kind of segmentation, we can carry their tags and apply the policies based on tags. So different type of kind of venues to apply which filter you want to use. It says a network tuple filter, application filter, cloud native tags, your tags that you are creating in Prosimo itself. All of those are the combinations.
When you choose an application object or some kind of a managed object, can you see the resultant set of policies? So let's say you've got 2 or 3, you've got a layer 3 policy, you've got an identity policy. Can we then see these 3 policies are applying to this object?
Yes.
And the resultant set of policies is X.
Yes,
absolutely. And I know that I just wanted to show you that because the policies attach this ping is going through, but I also want to show you it's not just about the network traffic, right? We've been talking about, hey, this network source here can talk to this Azure PostgreSQL database as a service as well that is somewhere sitting in Azure, managed by Azure. And if I go here,
because the managed Azure it's not even in your names, not even in your network namespace. It's just you get what you get.
Right. Oh, let's say then of course, I'm trying to connect to a database here, and I can actually go inside the database. Sorry. And I can see what exactly is there and whatnot. What I'm trying to say is that the source in AWS is actually talking to a database service that is managed by Azure, onboarded onto Prosimo, attached to the fabric, all going privately, securely from source to the destination.
Right, as an application traffic, not
Correct.
as layer 3 traffic.
Exactly.
It's application over layer 3, but like you're further, it's only saying PSQL traffic is going to get through.
Correct.
That's correct.
Not just that, right? Let's say, think about this, if it's an HTTP traffic. So you're not going to show just the TCP level stats. You're going to show actual HTTP gets and posts.
Right.
So those kind of things will be available, are available in the platform. We're not just looking every entity as an IP endpoint. It's actually an actual service that is running. So you can either onboard it as a TCP layer application. You could do a simple VNet pairing. But some of these apps are not being, let's say, Lambda function. How would you onboard a Lambda function with a vBPC pairing? So you need certain cloud native constructs, let's say, using a private link. Can I orchestrate a private link to attach to a source, let's say an S3 bucket, or a destination as an S3 bucket? So that requires deeper level of understanding, plus the cloud native construct that you're utilizing, which you cannot achieve from a router, right? If somebody's running a virtual appliance with a routing function inbuilt, there is no kind of notion of creating a private link endpoint and private link service and put up a load balancer, because they do not look at more than layer 3.
You're stuck at L3.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had a question coming from another delegate. Gina asks, basically, that's fantastic, absolutely outstanding. I'm flabbergasted, but the question should probably be asked: could you still be able to do that manually? Basically, that connection from AWS to a Postgres database within Azure.
Mm-hmm.
If you could do that manually, how do y'all basically? I mean, obviously, from what I just saw, it looked outstanding, how quickly it was done, but what is the time to market the ROI? What does that actually create in terms of doing it for yourself and doing it with your product?
Sure. One is the time constraint. We'll talk about the manual model versus this model. The other one is there are restrictions in the cloud provider. For example, private link in AWS is a regional construct. The moment you have, say, app in one region and database in another region, you can't use private. When you're done, without bringing in other services in the middle. Yeah, so what I was saying is one is a time constraint, the other one is there are some obvious limitations. Take private link as an example. We have an app in one region and database in another region, we just can't connect with each other, right? Because it doesn't support multi-region application. And other cloud is other constraint as well. So of course, even if you overcome the timing thing, hey, can I automate some of these and do it myself? But how do you overcome some of the things like overlapping IP, certain things only being a regional construct, and multi-cloud is another beast by itself.
Can I just clarify, when you onboarded that PostgreSQL database into Prosimo, what did that actually do? Did that just make it available within your platform then to put policies around? What I'm hearing, it didn't do any private link stuff.
It did.
It did?
It did. So,
okay.
So what we do is, and I'll take you back to the diagram here. What it does is when you actually attach it to the Prosimo fabric, what we do is we actually create a private link and then through that, so AWS is going to send traffic. Oh, I want to actually send it to this private link endpoint. It comes all the way to AWS. AWS Edge knows I need to send it to Azure, to the right region, and then we actually send it to that private link endpoint, and it goes.
Got it. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I heard that the private link wasn't being used, and then I was wondering how you're controlling the
So for
traffic.
any
So,
PaaS services, I think private link by default comes up as an option from the CSPs, and some of the apps cannot inject an endpoint into a VPC. It has to work using a private link endpoint.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why you can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
You are interacting with a third party because each of these cloud native constructs, convenient they might be, they have constraints, right? Private link is tied to a region. How do I, even if I've had all the automation expertise in the world, I'm going to instrument a cluster of services to extend that to multi-region, then to multi-cloud, right? It's not going to be easy. Overlapping, I'm likely interacting with another, vRouter type capability because cloud native, you cannot do that, right?
Yeah.
So I've got another quick question, and if it ends up being too long, let's offline it because it's kind of way off topic a little bit. But everything's here around multi-cloud, right? A lot of the customers I work with are SaaS companies and are usually in one cloud because they're early on in their stage. It sounds like some of your product might actually solve some of the problems. Are you working with customers who are just single cloud?
So most of the customer we start with, they are major on one cloud, and then there's some sprinkles of some of the apps in other clouds or services in other clouds. So they have a primary cloud. They usually, it could be Azure, GCP, AWS, doesn't matter to us. But they primary cloud, take AWS a primary cloud, as long as there is a regional kind of complexity or scale number of VPCs, which they cannot they can always onboard to a TGW, but all these challenges we just talked about, dynamic IPs and overlapping IPs and all that. For that, for sure, yes. So even if it's a single cloud, it works the same way, yes.
Okay, awesome.
So,
and whenever there is a single cloud, there is always an attachment to a DC or a branch, which works equally well with this.
Totally, yeah. I didn't know if I was going a bit crazy thinking this could work in a single cloud, but it's multi, so yeah.